The iron gate stood crooked in the snow, held together by rust and the stubborn will of a man who had stopped caring 3 years ago. December wind cut through Lancaster County like a blade, and the prairie stretched white and endless in every direction. This was Nebraska in 1891. This was the edge of the world. Emma Carter was 10 years old. Her fingers had turned the color of winter sky blue and purple, and something worse than cold. She could not feel them anymore. She could not feel her feet. She could not feel anything except the weight in her arms. Rose, her sister, 5 months old and silent. Silent babies were the most dangerous kind. Emma had learned this 3 days ago when she stepped off the coach at the first stop 40 miles from where her aunt had sent them to die. She had learned it through 14 closed doors, through 14 voices saying no, through 14 pairs of eyes that looked at a child holding a baby and saw only trouble they did not want. The farmhouse before her showed smoke rising from the chimney, gray smoke against white sky. It meant fire. Fire meant warmth. Warmth meant Rose might live another day. Emma pushed through the gate. The wire scraped against frozen wood. A sound like bones breaking. Her feet left red prints in the snow. She did not look down. She had stopped looking at what the cold had done to her. The walk to the porch took everything she had left. 3 steps. 1, 2, 3. Her fist found the door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was pathetic, weak as a sparrow dying in winter. Emma tried again, harder this time. Pain shot through her frozen knuckles like lightning through dead trees. "Please," she called out, her voice cracked and broke. "Please, is anyone there?" Silence answered. The wind answered. The emptiness of the prairie answered. Rose stirred against her chest. A thin cry escaped the blankets, barely qualifying as sound. Emma's heart clenched like a fist around broken glass. "Shh, baby girl, shh, someone's coming. Someone's going to help us." She did not believe it. 3 days of walking, 3 days of knocking. Nobody had helped. The church in Miller's Creek had offered prayers, but no room. The store owner had given her a hard biscuit and pointed toward the county orphanage 60 miles east. A farmer's wife had chased her off with a broom, calling her a beggar and worse. But Emma kept knocking anyway, because that's what Mama had taught her. Keep going, baby girl, keep fighting. Don't ever let them see you give up. The door swung open. A man stood there, tall and weathered with gray, threading through dark hair and eyes the color of winter sky. He looked to be in his late 40s, maybe 49, with the worn face of someone who had stopped caring about time. He looked to be in his late 40s, maybe 49, with the worn face of someone who had stopped caring about time. He wore a wool shirt half-buttoned, and his jaw carried several days of stubble. He looked like he had forgotten how to sleep, how to eat, how to care about anything at all. He stared at Emma like she was a ghost. "What in the—" He stopped. His gaze dropped to the bundle in her arms, to the tiny face barely visible beneath the ragged shawl. "Is that a baby?" "Yes, sir." Emma's voice came out steady, despite everything. Despite the cold, despite the hunger, despite the 3 days of hell that had led her here. "This is my sister Rose. She's 5 months old, and she's hungry, and she's cold, and I don't have anywhere else to go." The man's expression did not change. He stood there blocking the doorway, blocking the warmth, blocking everything that might save Rose's life. "Where's your folks?" "Dead, sir. Mama passed in October. Never knew my daddy." "Relatives. My aunt sent us away." Something flickered in the man's eyes. Pain, maybe, or recognition, but his voice stayed flat, cold as the winter killing them both. "This ain't a charity house." Emma lifted her chin. She called on every scrap of dignity she had left, every lesson Harriet Carter had taught her daughter about standing tall when the world tried to break you. "I'm not asking for charity, sir. I'm asking for work. I can clean, I can cook, I can mend clothes and tend animals and do whatever needs doing. I'm strong, sir, stronger than I look." "You're a child. I'm 10 years old, and I've been taking care of myself and my sister since Mama got sick. That's 8 months of cooking and cleaning and surviving." Emma's arms tightened around Rose. "I don't need much, just a place to sleep and some milk for my sister. I'll earn everything else." The man's jaw worked. He looked past Emma out at the blowing snow, at the dying light of afternoon, at the world that had clearly stopped making sense to him long ago. "I can't take in strays." "We're not strays, sir." Emma's voice came out stronger than she felt. "We're people." He flinched, actually flinched like she had struck him. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Emma could feel her strength fading, feel her legs starting to shake, feel the desperate exhaustion pulling at her bones like hands dragging her down into dark water. If he said no, she did not know what she would do. There was nowhere else to go. No more farms within walking distance, no more chances. Rose let out another weak cry. The man's eyes dropped to the baby again, and something cracked in his expression. Something he had been holding together with wire and stubbornness, just like his gait. How long since she ate? Yesterday morning. A woman in town gave us some goat's milk, but it ran out. Yesterday. His voice sharpened, cut like glass. She's been without food for over a day. I tried, sir. I tried everything, but nobody would. Emma's voice broke. She forced it back together. Nobody would help us. The man stepped aside. Get in here, now. Emma did not hesitate. She stumbled through the doorway into warmth that felt like heaven, into a house that smelled like wood smoke and loneliness and years of one man living alone with his ghosts. Her legs gave out the moment she crossed the threshold. She crashed to her knees on the wooden floor, still clutching Rose against her chest, still protecting the only family she had left. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Stop apologizing. The man was already moving, crossing to the stove, grabbing a pot. When's the last time you ate? Emma tried to remember. The biscuit from the store owner 2 days ago. Before that, some scraps from a trash pile behind a hotel. I don't know, sir. You don't know. His voice was rough. Not angry. More like he was angry at something else. Something bigger than her. Bigger than both of them. You've been walking in this weather with a baby. No food, no shoes. He stopped. Turned around slowly. Where are your shoes? Wore through 3 days ago. He stared at her. Really looked at her for the first time. And Emma knew what he saw. A skeleton of a girl with tangled hair and hollow cheeks, holding a bundle of rags that contained the only thing in this world worth saving. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Please don't blaspheme, sir. Mama wouldn't like it. Despite everything, the corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Not quite, but close. Your mama sounds like she was a particular woman. She was the best woman I ever knew. He turned back to the stove. His movements became suddenly more purposeful, like he had remembered something, like he had found a reason to move faster than he had moved in years. I've got goat's milk in the cellar. It'll need warming. You know how to feed a baby that young? Yes, sir. Been doing it since she was born. Then sit tight. Don't move from that spot until I tell you to. He disappeared through a door at the back of the kitchen. Emma heard his boots on wooden steps, descending into darkness, into whatever lay beneath this house of grief. She looked down at Rose, at the tiny face that was everything left of Harriet Carter, everything left of home, everything left of before. The baby's eyes were closed, her breathing shallow but steady. We made it, Rosebud, Emma whispered. We made it somewhere. The man returned with a jug of milk and a clean cloth. He poured some into the small pot and set it on the stove to warm. His movements were efficient, practiced, like he had done this before, like he had done this for someone else. What's your name? He asked without turning around. Emma Carter. My sister is Rose Carter. Carter. He tested the word, let it sit in the air between them. Where'd you come from? Missouri. Mama brought us to Omaha after she got sick, to stay with her sister, my Aunt Margaret. Emma could not keep the bitterness out of her voice, could not hide the betrayal that still burned like hot coals in her chest. She didn't want us. Nobody just doesn't want a baby. She said we were too expensive, too much trouble. Her husband didn't want children in the house. Emma stroked Rose's cheek. She gave us bus fare to the county orphanage and put us on a coach. I got off at the first stop. The man turned around. You ran away from a coach? Yes, sir. Why? Because I heard what happens to babies in orphanages. Emma met his eyes, unflinching, unafraid of the truth she had carried for 3 days through snow and cold, and the kind of fear that could kill you if you let it. They separate siblings, send them to different families, sometimes to factories. I'm not losing my sister. Not ever. Something shifted in the man's expression, something like respect breaking through the wall of ice he had built around himself. So you decided to walk across Nebraska in December instead? I decided to find a place where we could stay together, where I could work for our keep, where Rose could be safe. Emma's chin lifted. This is the 14th door I've knocked on, sir. Yours is the first one that opened. The milk was warm. The man tested it on his wrist, a gesture so familiar and practiced that Emma felt her throat tighten. He handed her the pot and the cloth. Feed her, then we'll figure out what to do with you. Emma did not argue. She dipped the cloth in the milk and brought it to Rose's lips. The baby latched on weakly at first, then, with growing strength as she realized food had finally come. Her small body relaxed, her tiny fists unclenched. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. She could not stop them, could not even try. All the fear, all the exhaustion, all the desperate hope of the past 3 days came pouring out in silent sobs. She's eating, she gasped. She's really eating. The man said nothing. He just stood there watching, his weathered face unreadable, his eyes holding something Emma could not name. When Rose had drunk her fill and fallen into a proper sleep, the good kind with pink cheeks and steady breathing, Emma finally looked up. "Thank you, sir. I don't know how to—" "Henry?" His voice was gruff, rough as the bark on old trees. "Name's Henry Blackwood. You can stop calling me sir." "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Just Henry." He grabbed a chair and set it by the stove, close to the warmth, close to the heat that was slowly bringing feeling back to Emma's frozen bones. "Sit down before you fall down." Emma obeyed. She sank into the chair with Rose still cradled against her chest. The warmth of the stove seeped into her body, and for the first time in days she felt something other than fear. Henry moved around the kitchen. He pulled out bread and dried meat and a jar of preserves. He set a plate in front of her, without ceremony, without comment, just food, just survival. "Eat slow. Don't make yourself sick." Emma picked up the bread with trembling fingers. The first bite was so good she almost cried again, almost broke down completely. But she held on. She held herself together because that's what Mama had taught her. You can cry later, baby girl. Right now, you survive. "I meant what I said," she managed between mouthfuls. "About working. I'm not looking for charity." "I heard you the first time. I just want you to know I'll earn my keep. Whatever you need done, I can do it." Henry sat down across from her, his elbows on the table, his eyes studying her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle he had given up on years ago. "You've got frostbite on your feet, probably on your fingers too. You're half-starved and exhausted. That baby needs proper feeding every few hours for the next several days just to get her strength back." He paused. "You're in no condition to work. Not today, not tomorrow. Maybe not for a week." Emma's stomach dropped. "Are you saying you won't let us stay?" "I'm saying you're in no shape to do anything except rest and heal. We'll talk about work when you can stand without falling over. Then I'll owe you. I'll work twice as hard when I'm better. Just—" Henry held up a hand, stopped her before she could promise more than any 10-year-old should have to promise. "Just stop. Eat your food, rest. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." Emma fell silent. She ate because her body demanded it, because Rose needed her strong, because survival meant fuel, and fuel meant food. Henry rubbed his face with both hands. He looked older than his years, looked like a man who had carried weight too heavy for one person to bear. "I haven't had another person in this house in 3 years, he said quietly. "Haven't wanted one. Haven't needed one." "Then why did you let us in?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning Emma did not fully understand. Henry's eyes dropped to Rose, to the baby sleeping peacefully in Emma's arms, to the small life he had just saved without knowing why. "Because my wife would have skinned me alive if I'd left you out in that snow." "Your wife?" "Sarah. She died 3 years ago. I'm sorry." "Me too." Henry stood abruptly. He moved to the window, put distance between himself and the conversation, between himself and the feelings he had buried with Sarah Blackwood in 1888. "I had a son too, Daniel. He left 5 years ago. We had a fight, said things we couldn't take back. Haven't seen him since." Emma understood then, understood the empty house, understood the broken gate and the look in his eyes like he had forgotten how to be alive. "You lost everyone." "Yes." "So did I." Henry turned around. Their eyes met. Two broken people recognizing something in each other. Grief, loneliness. The desperate, stubborn will to keep breathing even when breathing hurt. "1 week," Henry said finally. "You can stay 1 week. That'll give you time to heal up, get your strength back, figure out where you're going next. And after that, we'll see." It was not a promise. It was not even hope. But it was something. Something more than Emma had when she stood at that gate in the snow. "Thank you, Henry," he grunted, turned away like the gratitude made him uncomfortable. "There's a room at the back of the house. It was—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "It was my son's room. You and the baby can sleep there." Emma stood carefully, Rose still sleeping against her chest, still warm, still alive. "I truly am grateful for everything." "Don't be grateful yet. You haven't seen the room." But when Henry opened the door, Emma felt her breath catch. The room was small, but clean. A real bed covered in a faded quilt, a window that looked out over snow-covered fields. A wooden trunk against one wall. On the nightstand sat a photograph. A young man with dark hair and serious eyes standing next to a woman with a gentle smile. "That's Daniel," Henry said from behind her, "and Sarah. They're beautiful." They were. His voice carried the weight of past tense, the weight of people who existed only in memory now. This was supposed to be, we were going to have a daughter. Sarah was pregnant when she got sick. We lost them both. Emma turned to face him, this broken man who had opened his door when everyone else had closed theirs. "I won't let you down, Henry. Whatever happens, I want you to know that." His expression flickered. Something crossed his face too quickly to name, too painful to look at directly. "Just get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning." He pulled the door closed behind him, and Emma stood alone in the quiet room with her sleeping sister. She crossed to the bed and laid Rose down gently, tucked the quilt around her tiny body. The baby's face was peaceful now, content. "We're safe, Rosebug," Emma whispered. "For now, we're safe." She climbed onto the bed next to her sister, too exhausted to take off her coat, too tired to do anything but curl around Rose's small form and let her eyes close. Outside, the wind howled. The snow fell, burying the world in white. Inside, in a room that had been empty for 5 years, 2 lost girls slept their first peaceful sleep in days. And down the hall, Henry Blackwood sat by the dying fire, with his head in his hands, wondering what he had just done. Wondering why, after 3 years of wanting nothing, he suddenly felt something stirring in the frozen wasteland where his heart used to be. He looked at the photograph on the mantel. Sarah smiling. Sarah alive. Sarah telling him with her eyes what she had told him with her last breath. "Don't die with me, Henry. Promise me you'll keep living." He had not kept that promise. Not for 3 years. He had existed, breathed, survived, but he had not lived. Until tonight. Until a 10-year-old girl with old eyes and a dying baby knocked on his door and reminded him what it meant to need someone. What it meant to be needed. Henry stood. He walked to the back room, stood outside the door, listening. Inside, he could hear Emma singing, a lullaby, soft and slightly off-key, the voice of a child who had been forced to become an adult too soon. He pressed his hand against the door, closed his eyes. "I don't know if you sent them, Sarah," he whispered. "I don't know if this is your way of keeping me from becoming a ghost, but I'll try. I'll try to do right by them. For you." The singing stopped. The house fell silent except for the wind and the crackling fire and the sound of Henry Blackwood's heart, remembering how to beat for someone other than himself. December 12, 1891. The night everything changed. The night the gate opened. The night 2 strangers became something more than strangers, even if neither of them knew it yet. Tomorrow would bring questions. Tomorrow would bring complications. Tomorrow would bring the cold reality of a world that did not care about orphans or broken men or the fragile hope growing between them. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, Henry Blackwood went to bed thinking about the morning, thinking about tomorrow, thinking about 2 girls sleeping in his son's room and what it might mean to have a reason to wake up again. The gate stood open in the snow, crooked, broken, but open, always open. The next morning came gray and cold. Emma woke before dawn, her body's habit from months of caring for Rose overriding her exhaustion. The baby was still sleeping, her breathing steady, her color better than it had been in days. Emma slipped out of bed quietly, wincing as her feet touched the cold floor. The pain was sharper now, which meant feeling was returning. Henry had been right about the frostbite. She could see it now in the dim light filtering through the window, the angry red and white patches on her toes, the blisters forming on her heels. She ignored it. There was work to do. The kitchen was dark when she crept down the hallway, but she could hear movement in another part of the house. Henry probably doing whatever farmers did before sunrise. Emma found matches and lit the stove, coaxing the coals back to life. She located the coffee and the pot, working from memory of her mother's kitchen, her aunt's kitchen, all the kitchens where she had learned to make herself useful. By the time Henry appeared in the doorway, the coffee was ready, and Emma was wiping down the table with a damp cloth. He stopped dead. "What are you doing?" "Making coffee." Emma did not look up from her work, did not pause in the steady rhythm of cleaning. "And cleaning. This table's got a month of dust on it. I told you to rest." "I rested." She finally met his eyes, held his gaze with the quiet determination of a child who had learned that survival meant proving your worth every single day. "And now I'm earning my keep." Henry's jaw tightened. Something flickered across his face. Not anger, something closer to recognition, like he was seeing himself in this stubborn 10-year-old who refused to accept charity. "Your feet will heal faster if you stay off them. They'll heal faster if I keep moving. That's what Mama always said." "Your Mama ever have frostbite?" "No, but she had plenty of other things. She worked through all of them." Something in Henry's expression shifted. Not quite approval, but close to it. He moved past her to pour himself coffee, his movements stiff and careful, like a man who had forgotten how his own body worked. The baby still sleeping, She'll wake up hungry soon. Milk's warming on the back of the stove. Emma looked at the pot she had not noticed. The one already sitting over low heat. Henry had gotten up before her, had already started preparing for Rose's morning feeding. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't mention it." He sat down at the table, wrapping his hands around the coffee cup like he needed the warmth more than the caffeine, like he was trying to thaw something inside himself that had been frozen for 3 years. "You always wake up this early. Rose needs feeding every 4 hours. After a while, your body just knows. Even when you're half dead from walking 40 miles, especially then." Emma finished wiping the table and hung up the rag. Precise, methodical. The movements of someone who had been doing this work since she was old enough to reach the counter. "Babies don't care if you're tired. They just need what they need." Henry studied her over the rim of his cup, really looked at her in the morning light, at the dark circles under her eyes, at the way she held herself like a soldier at attention, at the old soul living inside a child's body. "How'd you end up the one taking care of her?" "You said your mama got sick, but that was before the baby was born." "Mama got sick right after Rose came. The birth was hard. She never really recovered." Emma's voice stayed steady, but her hands found the edge of the counter and gripped tight. "I did everything I could, kept the house clean, cooked the meals, took care of Rose so Mama could rest, but it wasn't enough. Some things aren't about enough. I know." Emma turned around to face him. "I know it wasn't my fault. Mama told me that at the end, said I'd done everything right, that she was proud of me, that I had to keep going no matter what." Her voice cracked, just slightly, just enough to show the wound underneath. But sometimes knowing something and feeling it are two different things. Henry was quiet for a long moment. The coffee grew cold in his hands. The morning light grew stronger through the window. "My wife said something similar," he finally said. "At the end. Told me not to blame myself for things I couldn't control." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Only the hollow sound of a man who had spent 3 years arguing with ghosts. "Didn't listen to her then, still not sure I listened to her now." "Maybe that's why you opened the door." "What do you mean?" Emma chose her words carefully, measured them like flour for bread, like medicine for the sick. "Maybe you needed to help someone else to stop punishing yourself." Henry's cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He stared at her, at this 10-year-old girl who spoke like she had lived 100 years, who saw through people like window glass. "You're too young to be this wise. And you're too stubborn to be this kind, but here we are, despite everything, despite the weight of 3 years of grief and the uncertainty of what came next." Henry's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Not quite, but closer than he had come in a very long time. "You've got a mouth on you. Mama said that too, usually right before she told me to hush. Smart woman. The smartest." Rose's cry pierced the quiet, thin and hungry. Emma moved immediately, heading for the bedroom, but Henry's voice stopped her. "I'll get the milk. You get the baby." They worked together in the gray dawn light, two strangers falling into a rhythm that felt strangely natural. Emma fed Rose while Henry made breakfast. Simple food, eggs and bread and more of the preserves, but more than Emma had eaten in weeks. When Rose was fed and changed and sleeping again, Emma looked at Henry across the table. "What needs doing today? Nothing you need to worry about." "Henry?" She said his name firmly, the way her mother might have, the way someone who refused to be dismissed would say it. "I told you I'd work. Let me work." He sighed, ran a hand through his gray streaked hair, the gesture of a man who knew when he was beaten. "Fine. There's mending needs doing, shirts with torn seams, socks with holes. Sarah used to handle that, and I never learned proper. I can do that. There's also the kitchen. Haven't really cleaned it since—" he trailed off. "Since your wife died." "Yeah. Then I'll clean it. And the windows could use washing. And the floors need sweeping. And—" He stopped himself and looked almost embarrassed. "I let things go." "It's all right." Emma's voice was gentle, understanding in a way that should have been impossible for someone so young. "It's hard to take care of a house when there's no one left to take care of it for." Henry looked at her for a long moment, and something in his expression cracked open. Not much, just a sliver, but enough to let a little light in. "You sure you're only 10? Some days I feel like I'm 100. "Yeah." His voice was rough, raw. "I know that feeling." They finished breakfast in comfortable silence. Then Emma got to work. By noon, the kitchen was unrecognizable. While cleaning the study, Emma found something tucked inside an old Bible on Henry's desk. A letter, yellowed with age. The envelope addressed in a woman's flowing script to Daniel Blackwood, Chicago, Illinois. But it had never been mailed, never been sent. Emma knew she should not read it. This was private, personal, but something made her open the envelope carefully. The letter inside was dated March 1888, just before Sarah died. My dearest Daniel, your father is suffering, more than he shows, more than he admits. The fight between you two is killing him slowly. He is too proud to reach out, too stubborn to apologize first. But I know him. I know he regrets every harsh word, every moment of anger. He loves you, Daniel. He always has. He simply does not know how to say it anymore. Please come home before it is too late. Before I am gone and he is left alone with nothing but regret. Your father needs you, even if he cannot say it. With all my love, Mother. Emma's hands trembled as she read. Sarah had tried to bring them back together, had written this plea from her deathbed, but it had never been sent. Henry must have found it after she died. Must have kept it all these years, unable to send it, unable to throw it away. This was why he opened the door, Emma realized. This was why he let them in, despite 3 years of isolation, because he knew what it meant to lose family to pride, to stubbornness, to words that could not be taken back. He had failed to save his relationship with Daniel before Sarah died, but he would not fail to save 2 girls standing in the snow. Emma carefully placed the letter back in the Bible. She would not tell Henry she had found it. This was his private pain, his private shame. But now she understood him, understood why saving them meant so much. Why keeping them safe was about more than charity or kindness. It was about redemption. Emma had scrubbed every surface, washed every dish, swept the floor until the old wood gleamed. She had organized the pantry, cleared out the stale bread and moldy preserves, started a list of supplies they would need from town. Henry came in from the barn and stopped in the doorway, just stood there, staring. You did all this? Yes. Emma wiped her hands on her apron, one of Sarah's that she had found hanging in the pantry. Too big for her, but functional. Is it all right? Is it? He shook his head, seemingly at a loss for words. It looks like it did when Sarah was alive. I hope that's okay. I know it might be hard, seeing it different. No. Henry's voice was thick, heavy with something Emma could not name. It's good. It's real good. Emma felt warmth bloom in her chest. Not the warmth of the stove or the fire, something different, something that felt like belonging. I found the mending basket, too. I'll start on that after lunch. After lunch? He moved to the stove where a pot of soup was simmering. Soup Emma had made from supplies in the cellar. Her mother's recipe. Or close to it. You made this Mama's recipe. Well, close to it. I didn't have all the right ingredients. Henry ladled soup into 2 bowls and sat down heavily. He took a bite. Something crossed his face. Something painful and sweet all at once, like tasting memory itself. It's good. Thank you. They ate in silence. But it was a different silence than before, softer, less lonely. The silence of 2 people learning to exist in the same space without collision. After lunch, Emma settled into the rocking chair by the fire with the mending basket while Rose slept in a nest of blankets nearby. Henry watched her work for a few minutes, watched her small fingers move the needle with practiced precision. Where'd you learn to sew like that? Mama was a seamstress. She taught me everything she knew. Emma held up the shirt she was mending, examining her stitches. Said a girl who could sew would never starve. She'd teach you to cook too, and clean, and all the rest, and garden, and keep accounts, and how to stretch a dollar until it screamed. Emma smiled sadly, a smile that held too much knowledge for a child. She wanted me ready for anything. Sounds like she knew she wouldn't be around forever. The words hung in the air. Emma's needle paused. The fire crackled. The clock on the mantel ticked. I think she did, Emma said quietly. I think she knew from the moment she got sick that she wasn't going to get better, but she didn't want me to be scared. So she just prepared me. Every day she taught me something new. Every day she told me she loved me. Henry was silent for a long moment. She sounds like she was a good mother. The best. I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you lost your wife. And your son. My son isn't dead. He just chose to leave. Sometimes that's harder. Henry looked at Emma sharply, surprised by the insight, by the way she understood things she should not understand. Maybe? They sat in silence after that, Emma sewing, Henry pretending to read a newspaper that was 3 weeks old, Rose sleeping peacefully, the afternoon light fading to evening. Finally Henry spoke. There's a school in Clearwater, the town about 15 miles from here. I was thinking, if you're going to stay even for a while, you should go. Emma's hands stilled. I can't leave Rose. Ruth Morrison, woman who lives about 3 miles east. She raised 6 children. She'd watch Rose during school hours for a small fee. We don't have money for fees. I do. Emma looked up, met Henry's eyes across the room. "Why would you do that? Because your mama wanted you to have an education. Because you deserve better than just surviving. Because—" He stopped, struggled with words that did not come easy. "Because it's the right thing to do." Emma felt something tighten in her throat, something that might have been tears, or might have been hope, or might have been the first real glimpse of a future that extended beyond tomorrow. "Can I think about it?" "Take all the time you need." But Emma already knew what she would decide. Some opportunities you did not let slip away. Her mother had taught her that too. The next few days fell into a pattern. Emma woke early, made coffee, cleaned, cooked, cared for Rose. Henry worked the farm, came in for meals, watched Emma transform his dead house into something that remembered how to breathe. They talked more as the days went on. Small conversations at first, then deeper. Henry told Emma about Sarah, about the quiet woman with the gentle smile who had loved her husband and the land with equal fierce devotion, about the pregnancy that had seemed like a miracle, about the sickness that had stolen everything. Emma told Henry about Harriet, about the seamstress who had raised her daughter alone and taught her everything she needed to survive, about the long illness, about the difficult birth that had taken what little strength remained. On the 6th day, Henry drove Emma and Rose into Clearwater. The town was small, one main street, a general store, a blacksmith, a church with a crooked steeple. People stopped to stare as Henry's wagon rolled past, stopped and whispered and wondered. At the general store, an older woman with kind eyes approached them. "Henry Blackwood, haven't seen you in town in months." She looked at Emma and Rose. "And who might these young ladies be?" "Emma and Rose Carter. They're staying with me." "Staying with you?" Ruth Morrison's eyebrows rose, but her voice held no judgment, only curiosity. "For how long?" "We're figuring that out." Ruth looked at Emma, really looked at her. Then at Rose, sleeping in Emma's arms. "May I?" Emma hesitated, then shifted Rose so Ruth could see her face. Ruth's expression changed. Professional, assessing, the look of someone who knew babies the way sailors knew the sea. "She's small, too small for 5 months. She's gaining every day," Emma said defensively. "I'm sure she is, with proper care." Ruth smiled at Emma, gentle, understanding. "You've done well, child. Better than most grown women could have done." Something in Emma's chest loosened. Someone saw, someone understood. "If you need anything," Ruth continued, "you come to me, day or night. I live 3 miles east of Henry's place, the house with the blue door." "Thank you, ma'am. Call me Ruth." Across the store, a thin woman with a pinched face was whispering to her companion, loud enough to be heard, pointed enough to sting. "A man alone with a young girl. It's not proper." Henry heard. His jaw tightened. But before he could speak, Emma stepped forward. "Not proper." Her voice cut through the store like a knife through butter, clear, strong, unafraid. "I knocked on 14 doors before I found Mr. Blackwood. 14 people who were too concerned with being proper to help a dying baby. So forgive me if I don't much care what proper people think." The store fell silent. The thin woman's face went red. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked out without another word. Reverend Webb, who had been standing near the door, approached. "Well," said young lady. He extended his hand to Henry. "Good to see you, Henry. It's been too long." "Reverend, you're doing a good thing, taking these children in. Sarah would be proud." Henry's face worked, emotion flickering across it like lightning behind clouds. "She'd have done the same. She would have. And she'd have expected nothing less from you." As they prepared to leave the store, owner Peterson pulled Henry aside. Emma saw them talking, saw the way Peterson's face grew serious, saw the way Henry's shoulders tensed. When Henry returned to the wagon, Emma asked, "What did he say?" Henry was quiet for a long moment. Then, "He's heard things. Margaret Fletcher, your aunt. She's been asking around about 2 girls matching your description." Emma's blood went cold. "She's looking for us." "Seems so. What do we do?" Henry looked at Emma, really looked at her, and Emma saw something in his eyes she had not seen before. Not just kindness, not just sympathy. Something fiercer, something that looked like protection. "We get ready, and if she comes, we deal with it together." The word hung between them. Together, not you, not I, together. On the ride home, Henry taught Emma to handle the reins, let her guide the horses while he sat beside her, ready to take over if needed, but trusting her to learn. "You're a natural," he said when she navigated a tricky turn. "Mama used to say I was born stubborn, helps with horses. Helps with a lot of things." When they got back to the farm, Henry had a surprise. He led Emma to the barn. Inside, a horse stood in a stall, not one of the workhorses. Something smaller, gentler, a mare the color of honey with a white blaze on her forehead. Her name's Clover. She was Sarah's horse. Hasn't been ridden since—" Henry stopped, cleared his throat. "I thought maybe you'd like to learn." Emma stared at the horse. At this gift she did not know how to accept. "I don't know how." "I'll teach you." Over the next hour Henry showed Emma how to approach Clover, how to touch her without spooking her, how to mount, how to sit, how to hold the reins. Emma was terrified at first, convinced she would fall, convinced she would fail, but Henry stood beside her the whole time, one hand on the bridle, one hand ready to catch her if she slipped. "I've got you," he said. "I promise. People always promise. Then they leave. I'm not people, and I'm not leaving." Emma looked at him, searched his face for the lie, for the crack in the armor, for the moment when he would realize she was too much trouble and send her away like everyone else. But she found nothing except steady determination, except a man who meant what he said. She relaxed. Let herself trust the horse, trust Henry, trust the moment. Clover began to walk, slow and gentle. Emma laughed, actually laughed, the sound bright and unexpected in the cold December air. Henry watched, and for the first time in 3 years, he cried. Not from sadness, from something else, something that felt like hope breaking through frozen ground. That night, after Rose was asleep and the house had settled into quiet, Emma found Henry sitting by the fire. "Henry, can I talk to you?" "Of course." She sat down across from him, pulled something from her pocket, a folded piece of paper worn and creased from being carried. "There's something I need to tell you about why Aunt Margaret sent us away. You don't have to. I do. Because if she comes, you need to know what we're dealing with." Emma unfolded the paper, a legal document, old but official. "My grandmother died 2 years ago, Mama's mother. She left 15 acres of land in Boone County, Missouri. Left it to Mama. Now it belongs to me and Rose." Henry took the paper, read it carefully. 15 acres. If the railroad expands through that county like they're planning, this could be worth a lot of money. $10,000, maybe more. Henry looked up sharply. "Your aunt knows about this." "Yes, I think that's why she sent us away. If we died, or disappeared, she could claim we were lost. Take the land for herself." Henry's face darkened, anger flickering across it like fire. "She tried to kill you for money. She tried to let me die. There's a difference, legally." "Not to me." Emma looked at Henry. At this man who had taken them in, who had fed them and sheltered them and taught her to ride a horse that belonged to his dead wife, who had given them a week that was turning into something more without either of them saying it out loud. "I'm telling you because you deserve to know, and because if she comes for us, she'll have lawyers, she'll have the law on her side. She's family. And I'm what, a stranger?" "No." Emma's voice was firm, certain. "You're the person who opened the door when family closed it. That makes you more than family. That makes you something better." Henry reached across the space between them, put his hand on Emma's shoulder, the first real touch beyond necessity, beyond survival. "I won't let her take you, either of you, I promise." "You can't promise that. The law?" "To hell with the law. You're under my roof, under my protection, and anyone who wants to take you away will have to go through me first." Emma felt tears starting, felt the careful control she had maintained for 3 days and 6 nights beginning to crack. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much about 2 strangers?" Henry was quiet for a long moment, his hand still on her shoulder, his eyes holding memories of a woman who had made him promise to keep living. "Because you're not strangers anymore, and because Sarah was right. The only way to stop dying is to start living again. You and Rose, you're teaching me how to do that." Emma launched herself across the space between them, threw her arms around Henry's neck, held on like he was the only solid thing in a world that kept trying to wash her away. Henry froze, just for a second. Then his arms came around her, held her, protected her. The way a father holds a daughter, the way family holds family. "We're going to be okay," Emma said against his shoulder. "Aren't we?" "Yeah." Henry's voice was rough, choked, but certain. "We're going to be okay." Outside, snow began to fall again, gentle this time. Not the killing cold of 3 days ago, just winter reminding them it was still there, still watching, still waiting. But inside the fire burned warm. Rose slept peacefully, and 2 broken people held on to each other and the fragile hope they were building together. One day at a time, one moment at a time, one open door at a time. The gate stood in the snow, still crooked, still held together by wire and stubbornness, but no longer lonely, no longer forgotten. Open, always open, just in case someone else needed to walk through. Christmas Eve came cold and clear. Emma had spent the morning decorating the house with pine branches she and Henry cut from the woods. Rose, now 6 months old and growing stronger every day, sat in a nest of blankets, watching Emma work with bright, curious eyes. The house smelled like fresh bread and wood smoke, and something Emma had not felt in a very long time. It smelled like home. Henry was in the barn tending to evening chores. Emma was setting the table for supper when she heard the sound. Horse hooves on frozen ground, coming fast, too fast for a casual visitor. She moved to the window, looked out into the gathering dusk. A rider was approaching, young, moving with purpose. And even from a distance, even in the failing light, Emma could see the resemblance, the set of the shoulders, the way he sat the horse. She knew who it was before Henry came running from the barn. Daniel Blackwood had come home. Henry stood in the yard as his son dismounted. Father and son faced each other across 5 years of silence, 5 years of words that could not be taken back, 5 years of pride and stubbornness and grief that had kept them apart. Daniel spoke first. "Hello, Father." His voice was rough, uncertain. Like a man stepping onto ice he was not sure would hold his weight. Henry's face worked, emotion flickering across it too fast to name. Then he stepped forward, pulled his son into an embrace that was awkward and fierce and years overdue. "You came. I got your letter." Daniel pulled back. His eyes were bright. "I should have come sooner. I should have been here when Mother died." "She knew you loved her, did she? Always." They stood there in the cold, two men trying to cross a chasm with nothing but words and hope and the desperate need to be family again. Emma appeared on the porch with Rose in her arms. Daniel looked at her, then at Henry, understanding dawning in his eyes. "So this is the girl who brought you back to life." Henry turned, saw Emma standing there, saw the way she held Rose protectively, saw the question in her eyes. Emma rose. "This is my son, Daniel." Daniel climbed the porch steps, extended his hand to Emma with the formal courtesy of a man meeting an equal. "Emma Carter, my father wrote about you, about how you walked 40 miles through a blizzard, about how you refused charity and asked for work instead." He smiled. "That took courage most grown men don't have." Emma shook his hand, measured him with the same careful assessment she had used on Henry. "Your father is a good man. I know. Took me 5 years to remember it, but I know." They went inside, sat around the kitchen table while Henry made coffee. Daniel told them about Chicago, about the construction work, about the years of trying to prove he did not need this place, did not need his father, did not need Nebraska. "But I was wrong," he said. "About all of it, this place, father, what matters?" He reached into his coat, pulled out a thick folder. "And I'm here because Emma and Rose are in danger." The warmth of the kitchen seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What kind of danger?" Henry's voice was sharp, protective. "I have a friend in Chicago, a lawyer. When I got your letter, I asked him to look into Margaret Fletcher." Daniel opened the folder, spread papers across the table. "Her husband, Walter Fletcher, owes $3,000 in gambling debts. Bad debts. To bad people." Emma felt her stomach clench. "So she needs money. She needs money fast, and the only way to get it is," Daniel looked at Emma, his face grave, "is to control your inheritance. 15 acres in Boone County that could sell for $10,000 to $15,000 if the railroad comes through." Henry stood, paced to the window, hands clenched into fists. "She sent them to die for railroad money. It's worse than that." Daniel pulled out another document, a legal filing, official stamps and dates that looked like a death sentence written in ink. Margaret Fletcher filed a petition for guardianship with Lancaster County Court, filed it December 20th. Emma's blood went cold. "December 20th. But that was before you found us, before we came here." "Exactly." Daniel's voice was grim. "She filed before she knew where you were, before she knew you were alive, which means she had this planned from the beginning." The room spun. Emma gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling. Henry crossed to her in 3 strides, put his hand on her shoulder, steady, anchoring. "What else?" "The hearing is set for January 15th, 3 weeks from now. We have 3 weeks to prepare." "Prepare for what?" "She's blood family, the law. The law also recognizes abandonment, endangerment, best interest of the child." Daniel leaned forward. "Father, you filed for guardianship on Christmas Eve. I checked with the county clerk. Your petition is on record, which means this goes to trial. Judge Hiram Morrison will decide. Can we win? I don't know, but I know a good lawyer. Samuel Green. He used to be a judge himself before he went into private practice. If anyone can beat Margaret Fletcher, it's him." Emma found her voice. "How much will this lawyer cost?" Daniel and Henry exchanged glances. "Don't worry about that," Henry said. "I have to worry about it. If you spend all your money fighting for us, and we lose, we're not going to lose." But if we do, Henry knelt down beside Emma's chair, looked her in the eyes with an intensity that stopped her breath. Listen to me. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the land. I care about you and Rose. And I will spend every penny I have to keep you safe. Do you understand? Emma nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Good. Henry stood, turned to Daniel. Wire your lawyer friend tomorrow. Tell him we need to meet as soon as possible. The next days passed in a blur of preparation and growing dread. Daniel rode to Lincoln and returned with Samuel Green, a silver-haired man of 60 with sharp eyes and sharper questions. Green sat across from Emma at the kitchen table, his notebook open, his pen ready. Tell me everything, he said. From the beginning. Don't leave anything out. Emma told him. About Harriet's death. About Margaret's cold rejection. About the bus ticket to the orphanage. About the decision to run. About the 40 miles and the 14 closed doors and the frozen prayer at Henry's gate. Green listened. Took notes. Asked questions that cut like scalpels. Your aunt will say she was trying to help, that she bought you a ticket to proper care. She was trying to get rid of us. Can you prove it? Emma hesitated. She said her husband did not want children, that we were too expensive. Who else heard this? No one. It was just me and her. Green made a note, his face neutral. What about the inheritance? Did she know about the land? Yes, Mama told her before she died, asked her to make sure we got it when we were old enough. So Margaret Fletcher knew about 15 acres worth potentially $10,000, and she knew the only thing standing between her and that money was 2 children. Green looked up, met Emma's eyes. This is good. This gives us motive, but it's still not enough. What do we need? We need to prove abandonment, prove she put you in danger knowingly, prove that Henry Blackwood is the better guardian. Green closed his notebook. And we need you to be ready to testify, in front of a judge, in front of your aunt, in front of a courtroom full of strangers. Can you do that? Emma thought about Rose, about the baby who was finally gaining weight, finally learning to sit up, finally looking like she might survive after all. I can do anything for my sister. Good, because the other side will try to break you. They'll ask you hard questions. They'll try to make you cry, try to make you angry, try to make you look like a child who cannot be trusted. I am a child. No. Green's voice was firm, kind, but unyielding. You're a survivor, and that's what we're going to show them. Over the next week, Green came to the farm every other day. He drilled Emma on her testimony, made her practice answering questions, taught her to stay calm, to speak clearly, to look the questioner in the eye. Daniel played the role of Margaret's lawyer, asking cruel questions, probing for weakness. Isn't it true your mother was an unmarried woman? My mother was a good woman who raised me alone. But she had children out of wedlock, with different fathers. She had children she loved and raised well. Some might say that shows poor judgment. Emma felt anger rising, hot and sharp. But she remembered Green's coaching. Stay calm. Don't let them see you break. Some might say that shows strength, raising 2 children alone, teaching them to survive, teaching them to be good people. Henry watched from the corner, pride and pain warring on his face. After one particularly brutal practice session, Emma went to her room, sat on the bed, stared at the photograph of Daniel and Sarah. Henry found her there. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Emma, if I don't fight, we lose. If we lose, they take Rose, they take me. They split us up and send us to different families or different orphanages or different hells. Emma looked up at Henry. I won't let that happen. Henry sat down beside her. The mattress dipped under his weight. You're the bravest person I know. I'm scared. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Emma spoke. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why are you doing this? Really? You could let us go. Let Margaret take us. It would be easier, cheaper, safer for you. Henry was quiet for a long time, long enough that Emma thought he might not answer. Then he reached over, put his hand on top of hers. Do you know what Sarah said to me right before she died? No. She said, don't die with me, Henry. Promise me you'll keep living. I told her I promised. But I didn't keep that promise, not for 3 years. I existed. I breathed. I worked the farm, but I didn't live. He turned to look at Emma, until you knocked on my door, until I saw you standing there with Rose in your arms, and something in me woke up. You gave me a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to care, a reason to remember what it feels like to be needed. Emma felt tears starting, hot and unexpected. So I'm doing this because you saved me first, and because, his voice roughened, because I love you and Rose like you were mine. And I can't lose you. I won't. Emma threw her arms around his neck, held on tight. I love you too. You're like a father to me. Henry's arms came around her, held her close. Then call me that. Call me what you want to call me. What feels right? Emma pulled back, looked at him through tear-blurred eyes. Pa. The word came out uncertain, testing, like stepping on ice. Henry smiled, truly smiled. The first real smile Emma had seen from him. Yeah, sweetheart, I'm your pa. If you'll have me, I'll have you. They held each other while the winter wind howled outside and Rose babbled happily in the other room, and Daniel made coffee in the kitchen, and everything felt for just a moment like it might actually be okay. But the feeling did not last. On January 14th, the day before the trial, a telegram arrived. Daniel brought it in from town, his face grave. He handed it to Henry without a word. Henry read it, his expression darkening with each line. What? Emma asked. What does it say? Walter Fletcher was arrested in Chicago, January 13th. Fraud and embezzlement charges. Henry looked up. Margaret's husband is in jail. So she needs the money even more, Daniel said. To pay for lawyers, to pay off debts. She'll be desperate. Desperate people are dangerous. As if summoned by their words, there was a knock at the door. Everyone froze. Henry moved to the window, looked out. His face went hard. It's her. Emma's heart stopped. Margaret, she's here, at the farm. Emma stood, every instinct screaming at her to run, to hide, to grab Rose and disappear into the winter. But she did not run. She stood tall, lifted her chin, became the girl who had walked 40 miles through snow and refused to break. Let her in. Henry looked at her. You don't have to see her. Yes, I do. I want to look her in the eye, want her to see that we're not scared anymore. Henry opened the door. Margaret Fletcher stood on the porch, older than Emma remembered, harder, dressed in city clothes that looked out of place against the Nebraska winter. Mr. Blackwood, I presume? Mrs. Fletcher, I've come for my nieces. They're not going anywhere. We'll see what the judge says tomorrow. Margaret's eyes found Emma, cold, calculating. Hello, Emma. Aunt Margaret, you've caused quite a lot of trouble, child. Running away like that. You sent me away. I sent you to proper care. You chose to endanger yourself and your sister. You sent us to die. The words hung in the air, sharp, undeniable. Margaret's face hardened. I did no such thing, and I'll thank you not to spread lies about family. Family. Emma stepped forward, Rose in her arms. You're not family. Family doesn't abandon children in winter. Family doesn't send babies to die for money. How dare you? I dare because I know the truth. About the land, about the inheritance, about why you really want us back. Margaret's eyes flicked to Henry, to Daniel, back to Emma. I don't know what lies this man has been telling you. He hasn't told me lies. He's told me the truth, something you never did. You're a child. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You want the 15 acres in Boone County. You want the railroad money. You want to save your husband from his debts. That's why you filed for guardianship before you even knew where we were. Margaret went pale. I see you've been doing your research. We have. Henry's voice was cold, steady. We know everything. About your husband's arrest. About the gambling debts. About the petition you filed December 20th. Before Emma arrived here. Before you even looked for them. That proves nothing. It proves you never cared if they were alive or dead, as long as you could claim guardianship and control their inheritance. Margaret's composure cracked, just slightly, just enough to show the desperation underneath. Those children are my blood, my responsibility, and no court will give them to a stranger when they have family willing to take them. We'll see, Henry said. Tomorrow, in front of Judge Morrison. Margaret turned to leave, then stopped, looked back at Emma. Your mother would be ashamed of you, turning your back on family. Emma felt the words like a slap, but she did not flinch, did not look away. My mother taught me that family is about love, not blood, and she would be proud that I chose the man who opened his door over the woman who closed hers. Margaret left without another word. As her carriage disappeared down the road, Emma started to shake, the adrenaline draining away, leaving her hollow and cold. Henry wrapped his arms around her and Rose. You did good, sweetheart. You stood up to her. I'm scared, Pa. What if we lose tomorrow? What if the judge... Then we'll appeal. We'll keep fighting. I told you before, I'm not letting you go. Daniel joined them, put his hand on Emma's shoulder. She's rattled. Did you see she's scared too? Which means we have a chance. That night, Emma could not sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Rose breathe. thinking about tomorrow, about the courtroom, about having to stand up in front of strangers and tell her story. A soft knock came at the door. "Emma, you awake?" "Yes, Pa." Henry came in, sat on the edge of the bed in the darkness. "I know you're scared. I keep thinking, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I mess up? What if—" "Emma." His voice was firm, gentle. "Look at me." She turned her head, could just make out his face in the moonlight from the window. "You walked 40 miles through a blizzard. You kept your sister alive when most people would have given up. You faced down your aunt tonight without flinching. You are the strongest person I know." "I don't feel strong." "Strength isn't about feeling strong. It's about doing what needs doing, even when you're terrified." He reached over, squeezed her hand. "Tomorrow you tell the truth. You tell them what happened. You tell them about Margaret sending you away, about the doors that closed, about finding this place. And you let the judge see who you really are, a girl who fought for her sister, who asked for work instead of charity, who turned a dead house into a home. What if it's not enough? Then we fight harder. But Emma, I think it will be. I think once they hear your story, once they see you and Rose together, they'll understand. Family isn't about blood, it's about love, and we love each other. That has to count for something." Emma sat up, hugged Henry tight. "I love you, Pa. I love you too, sweetheart. You and Rose both. No matter what happens tomorrow." He stayed with her until she fell asleep, stayed watching over her and Rose like a guardian angel made of stubbornness and hope and the fierce protective love of a father who had found his children in the snow. Outside, the wind died down. The stars came out. The gate stood open. And somewhere in Lincoln, in the courthouse that would decide their fate, Judge Hiram Morrison prepared for the most important case of his career. A case about 2 orphaned girls, a broken man, and the question that mattered more than law or blood or money. What makes a family tomorrow would bring the answer. January 15, 1892, the day that would decide everything. The Lancaster County Courthouse stood against the winter sky like a monument to judgment. 3 stories of brick and stone, and the weight of decisions that changed lives. Henry had been inside these walls only twice before, once to file the deed for his farm, once to sign the papers that made Sarah his wife. Now he walked through those doors with Emma's small hand in his, Rose bundled against the cold in his other arm, and Daniel at his side. Walking toward a fate they could not control. Walking toward a judge who would decide if love was enough to beat blood. The courtroom was already crowded when they entered. People from Clearwater had come. Ruth Morrison sat in the front row, her face set with determination. Reverend Webb sat beside her. Even Mrs. Whitmore, who had once questioned Henry's propriety, had made the journey to Lincoln. And there on the other side of the aisle sat Margaret Fletcher. She wore black. Mourning clothes, though no one in her family had died. The message was clear. She was the grieving aunt, the responsible relative, the proper guardian. Emma's hand tightened in Henry's. "I'm here," he whispered, "right beside you, no matter what happens." Judge Hiram Morrison entered, 65 years old with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen every lie a courtroom could produce. He took his seat behind the bench, surveyed the room with the weariness of a man who knew that justice and law were not always the same thing. "The court will come to order." His voice carried the weight of authority earned over 4 decades on the bench. Case number 417, Margaret Fletcher versus Henry Blackwood, petition for guardianship of Emma Carter and Rose Carter. He looked at Margaret, then at Henry, finally at Emma. "This is not a criminal trial. This is a determination of best interest. I will hear testimony from both sides. I will review all evidence, and I will make a decision based on the law and the welfare of these children." He paused. "Does everyone understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," the lawyers said in unison. "Then let us begin. Mr. Drake, you may present your case." Cornelius Drake stood, Margaret's lawyer. 42 years old, with the smooth confidence of a man who had never lost a case, he cared about winning. He buttoned his jacket, approached the bench like he was approaching victory. "Your Honor, this is a simple case. 2 orphaned children, a loving aunt who wishes to care for them, and a stranger who, however well-meaning, has no legal claim to these girls." He turned to face the courtroom. "Margaret Fletcher is Emma and Rose Carter's blood relative, the sister of their deceased mother. Under Nebraska law, family has the right and the responsibility to care for orphaned children. Mrs. Fletcher attempted to provide that care. Circumstances forced her to seek temporary solutions, but she never stopped searching for her nieces, never stopped wanting them home." Drake's voice was smooth, reasonable, the voice of common sense. "Mr. Blackwood is not family. He is a stranger who took these children in, which speaks to his kind heart. But kindness is not guardianship. Good intentions are not legal standing. The law is clear. Family comes first. He sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison looked at Samuel Green. Your response. Green stood, older than Drake by 20 years, slower in movement but sharper in mind. He had been a judge himself once, knew Morrison personally, knew how the man thought. Your Honor, Mr. Drake is correct that the law prefers family, but the law also recognizes abandonment, neglect, endangerment. And the paramount consideration in any guardianship case is not what is legal. It is what is right. He walked to the center of the courtroom, spoke directly to Morrison. We will prove that Margaret Fletcher abandoned these children, that she endangered their lives knowingly, that her motives for seeking guardianship now have nothing to do with love and everything to do with 15 acres of land worth $10,000. Margaret's lawyer stood. Objection, inflammatory and speculative. Overruled. Morrison leaned forward. I want to hear this. Continue, Mr. Green. We will also prove that Henry Blackwood, though not related by blood, has provided these children with the care, protection, and love that defines true family. He saved their lives. He gave them a home. And he has earned the right to be their father. Green sat down. Morrison looked at both lawyers. Call your first witness. Drake stood. The petitioner calls Margaret Fletcher. Margaret rose, walked to the witness stand with her head held high, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. The lies began immediately. Mrs. Fletcher, Drake said, his voice gentle, sympathetic, tell the court about your relationship with Emma and Rose. They are my nieces, my sister Harriet's daughters. I loved Harriet dearly. When she fell ill, I promised to care for her children if anything happened to her. And when she passed away, I was devastated, but I kept my promise. I went to Missouri immediately, brought the girls to my home in Omaha. Why did you give Emma a bus ticket to the orphanage? Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Practiced. Perfect. My husband and I were struggling financially. We wanted to keep the girls, but we could not afford to feed 2 more mouths. I had a cousin in Lincoln who worked at a good orphanage, a place where the children would be fed, educated, cared for properly. I bought Emma a ticket, gave her money for food, told her to go there and wait, that I would visit as soon as I could arrange things. But Emma did not go to the orphanage. No, she ran away. Got off the bus at the first stop. I searched everywhere for her, put notices in newspapers, hired investigators. I was terrified. The tears fell. Margaret dabbed at them with a handkerchief. Drake let the moment breathe. Let the courtroom see a grieving aunt, a woman who had lost her nieces. When did you learn where Emma and Rose were? Not until December 18th, when someone from Clearwater wrote to tell me they had been seen with a man named Henry Blackwood, a stranger. And what did you do? I came immediately, filed for guardianship. I had to protect them. Drake nodded, satisfied. No further questions. Green stood, slowly, like a predator that had been waiting for this moment. Mrs. Fletcher, you say you searched for Emma and Rose? Yes. When did you report them missing to the police? Margaret hesitated. I contacted the authorities. When what date? I believe it was early January. Green pulled a document from his folder. January 2nd, 1892, 6 weeks after Emma disappeared. Why did you wait 6 weeks to report 2 missing children to the police? I thought she had gone to the orphanage. I was checking there first. Did you check? Silence. Mrs. Fletcher, did you contact the orphanage in Lincoln to ask if Emma and Rose had arrived? I cannot recall. You cannot recall whether you checked on the safety of 2 children you claim to love? Green's voice cut like ice. Let me help your memory. I contacted the Lincoln County Orphanage. They have no record of any inquiry from you. No letter, no telegram, no visit, nothing. Margaret's face went pale. I must have forgotten. You forgot to check if a 10-year-old girl and a 5-month-old baby arrived safely at their destination. In December and winter, I was distraught. You were distraught, but not distraught enough to contact the police for 6 weeks. Not distraught enough to check with the orphanage. Not distraught enough to do anything except file for guardianship the moment you learned Mr. Blackwood had done the same. Drake stood. Objection. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Mr. Green, ask your questions without editorial. My apologies, Your Honor. Green turned back to Margaret. Mrs. Fletcher, you are aware that Emma and Rose have an inheritance, 15 acres in Boone County, Missouri. Yes, their grandmother's land, worth approximately $10,000 to $15,000 if the railroad expands through that county as planned. I suppose. And you are aware that your husband, Walter Fletcher, was arrested in Chicago on January 13th, charged with fraud and embezzlement. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Morrison banged his gavel. Order. Margaret's composure cracked. That has nothing to do with... It has everything to do with this case. Green pulled another document. Your husband owes $3,000 in gambling debts. He faces 5 years in prison if convicted. You need money, a lot of money, and the only way to get it is to control Emma and Rose's inheritance. That's not true. Then tell the court, under oath. Do you need money? Margaret's mouth opened, closed. The tears were gone now, replaced by something harder, something desperate. Everyone needs money, Mr. Green, but not everyone abandons children to get it. Drake was on his feet. Objection, Your Honor. This is outrageous. I agree. Morrison's voice was hard. Mr. Green, you've made your point. Move on or sit down. Green looked at Margaret Fletcher. Let the silence stretch. Let the courtroom see her for what she was. No further questions. Margaret fled the witness stand like it was on fire. She sat beside Drake, her hands shaking. The mask of the grieving aunt was gone. What remained was a woman who had gambled everything on lies and lost. Morrison called a recess. 15 minutes to let the tension drain, to let people breathe. Henry found Emma in the hallway. She was standing by a window, looking out at the snow-covered streets of Lincoln. You okay? She lied about everything, and people believed her at first. But then Green showed them the truth. What if it's not enough? What if the judge still thinks blood matters more than anything else? Henry knelt down, looked Emma in the eye. Then we appeal, we fight harder, but Emma, you saw her face. Everyone saw it. She's not the victim here. You are. And I think Morrison saw that too. Ruth Morrison appeared around the corner. They're calling witnesses. Henry, they want me first. Ruth took the stand. She spoke with the calm authority of a woman who had spent 60 years raising children and knew what love looked like. I met Emma and Rose on December 18th, she said, at the general store in Clearwater. Rose was severely malnourished, underweight, listless. That baby was dying. How could you tell? Green asked. I've raised 6 children, Mr. Green. I've helped birth 20 more. I know what a dying baby looks like. Rose Carter was maybe 2 days away from death when I saw her. And now she's healthy, gaining weight, alert, happy. That's because of Henry Blackwood. He saved that child's life. Drake tried to shake her testimony, tried to suggest she was exaggerating. But Ruth Morrison did not shake. I know what I saw. And what I saw was a miracle, not a legal one, a human one. Reverend Webb testified next. Spoke about Henry's character, about the change he had seen in a man who had been dead inside for 3 years. Henry Blackwood lost his wife, lost his son, lost his faith in everything except duty. But when Emma and Rose came, something changed. He started living again, started hoping again. That's not the behavior of a man who wants something from these children. That's the behavior of a man who has been given something precious and knows it. Then they called Henry. He walked to the stand on legs that felt like water, placed his hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. All he had was truth. It would have to be enough. Green asked him about the night Emma arrived, about the decision to let them in, about the weeks that followed. Henry answered simply, honestly, without trying to make himself sound better than he was. I'm not a perfect man, he said. I've made mistakes. I drove my son away with my stubbornness. I let grief turn me into someone my wife wouldn't recognize. But Emma and Rose, they gave me a reason to be better, a reason to try. Do you love them? Green asked. Yes. As much as you would love your own children. They are my own children. Maybe not by blood, but by choice, by love, by every way that matters. Drake stood for cross-examination, his expression hard. Mr. Blackwood, you are 40 years old, unmarried, living alone on an isolated farm. Yes? And you took in a 10-year-old girl, allowed her to live in your home, without any female supervision. I gave her shelter when she was dying. That's not improper, that's human. Some might say the appearance of impropriety is as important as actual impropriety. Then some people care more about gossip than saving lives. Drake's eyes narrowed. You had a son, Daniel Blackwood. He left 5 years ago. You have not seen him since, correct? Henry felt the blow land. Correct. A man who cannot keep his own son cannot maintain his own family. How can he be trusted to raise 2 girls who are not his responsibility? The courtroom was silent. Henry felt the weight of every eye, the judgment, the doubt. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, a voice rang out from the back of the courtroom. Because he's a better man than I gave him credit for. Everyone turned. Daniel Blackwood stood, walked down the aisle toward the bench, his face set with determination. Your Honor, may I testify? Morrison looked surprised. You're not on the witness list. I know, but I have information relevant to this case. Information about my father's character. Morrison considered, then nodded. Approach. Daniel took the stand, was sworn in, sat down in the chair his father had just vacated. Drake stood. Objection, Your Honor. This witness was not disclosed. Overruled. I want to hear what he has to say. Mr. Blackwood, proceed. Daniel looked out at the courtroom, found his father's eyes, held them. 5 years ago, I left home. My father and I had a fight about my future. He wanted me to stay on the farm. I wanted to see the world. We both said things we regretted, things we could not take back. I left angry, stayed away angry. When my mother died 3 years ago, I did not even know until months later. His voice roughened. I blamed my father for that. For everything. I stayed away in Chicago building a life that proved I did not need him, did not need this place, did not need Nebraska. Then in December, I got a letter from my father. The first communication we'd had in 5 years. He told me about Emma and Rose, about how they had come to his door in the snow, about how they had changed everything. Daniel stood, walked to where Henry sat. That letter did something I thought was impossible. It made me see my father clearly for the first time, not as the stubborn man who drove me away, but as a broken man who had learned to open his door, to let people in, to love again. He put his hand on Henry's shoulder. Emma Carter did not just save her sister when she walked through that blizzard. She saved my father. She gave him a reason to write to me, a reason to apologize, a reason to be the man my mother always knew he could be. Henry's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in 3 years, in front of a courtroom full of strangers, he cried. Daniel's voice broke. So when Mr. Drake asks how we can trust my father to raise these girls, I say this: I trust him because he changed, because he chose love over pride, because he opened his door when the whole world had closed theirs, and because Emma and Rose made him remember what my mother told him on her deathbed. Don't die with me, Henry. Keep living. The courtroom was silent. Not a single sound, except for quiet crying. From Ruth Morrison, from Reverend Webb, from people who had come to watch a legal proceeding and found themselves witnessing something else entirely. The reunion of a father and son, the healing of a family, the proof that love could do what law and blood could never accomplish alone. Morrison cleared his throat. Mr. Blackwood, you may step down. Daniel returned to his seat. Henry stood, crossed to his son, pulled him into an embrace that said everything words could not. Morrison watched them, his face unreadable. This court will take a 30-minute recess. When we return, I will hear closing arguments. Then I will make my decision. He stood, left the bench. The gavel fell. And Henry held his son while Emma watched with Rose in her arms, and everyone in that courtroom understood that the judge was not the only one who would make a decision today. They already had. Blood did not make family. Choice did. Love did. Showing up did. The gate standing open in the snow did. Everything else was just paperwork. The 30 minutes felt like 30 years. Emma sat in the hallway outside the courtroom with Rose in her arms. The baby had been remarkably quiet through the morning, as if she understood somehow that this day mattered, that everything balanced on the edge of a knife. Henry paced. Daniel sat with his head in his hands. Ruth Morrison prayed quietly, her lips moving without sound. Samuel Green appeared around the corner. His face was grave. They're ready for closing arguments. After that, Morrison will call Emma to testify. Emma felt her stomach drop. I thought I might not have to. The judge wants to hear from you directly. It's unusual in guardianship cases, but this whole case is unusual. Green knelt down beside her chair. Emma, this is it. This is when we win or lose. I need you to be brave. I need you to tell the truth. Can you do that? Emma looked at Rose, at the baby who had survived because she had refused to give up, who had lived because a stranger opened his door. I can do anything for her. Good girl. They filed back into the courtroom. The crowd had grown. Word had spread through Lincoln that something extraordinary was happening in Judge Morrison's courtroom, that a case about 2 orphans had become something more, a case about what family really meant. Drake stood for his closing argument. He was smooth, professional. He spoke about the sanctity of family, about blood ties that could not be broken by sentiment or good intentions, about the law's clear preference for relatives over strangers. Your Honor, we sympathize with Mr. Blackwood. He acted with kindness. But kindness is not enough. Margaret Fletcher is these children's aunt, their only living relative. She made mistakes born of poverty and desperation, but she never stopped loving them, never stopped wanting them home. He gestured to Margaret, who sat with her eyes downcast, playing the role of the penitent aunt. The law exists for a reason, to protect family bonds, to ensure children are raised by their own blood. We ask that you honor that law today, Return Emma and Rose Carter to their rightful guardian, to their family. He sat down. Green rose, slower, more deliberate. He did not speak immediately. He let the silence build, let the courtroom wait. Then his voice rang out clear and strong. Mr. Drake speaks of family, of blood, of law, but he forgets the most important question in any guardianship case. What is best for these children? He walked to the center of the courtroom. Is it best to send them back to a woman who abandoned them, who gave a 10-year-old girl bus fare to an orphanage and never checked if she arrived, who filed for guardianship not out of love but out of greed, who needs $15,000 to save her husband from prison? His voice rose. Or is it best to leave them with a man who saved their lives, who gave them food and shelter when 14 other doors closed, who has proven every single day for the past month that he loves these children as his own? Green turned to face Morrison directly. Your Honor, the law prefers family, but the law also recognizes that sometimes family fails. Sometimes strangers become saviors. Sometimes a man who lost everything finds redemption in two girls who had nothing. He paused. Blood does not make family. Love makes family. Choice makes family. And Henry Blackwood chose Emma and Rose when their own blood relative chose money instead. Green sat down. The courtroom was silent. Morrison looked at both lawyers, then at Emma. I want to hear from Emma Carter. Emma stood. Her legs felt like water. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Rose was taken gently by Ruth, who whispered encouragement as Emma walked forward. The witness stand seemed impossibly high, impossibly far. Emma climbed into the chair. The bailiff brought over a box for her feet to rest on because she was too small to reach the floor. She looked out at the courtroom, at Henry's face, at the hope and fear warring in his eyes. Emma, Morrison's voice was gentle, almost grandfatherly. I know this is frightening, but I need you to tell me what happened, in your own words, starting from when your mother died. Can you do that? Emma's throat was tight, but she nodded. Yes, sir. Take your time. Emma took a breath. Let it out slowly. Found her voice. Mama died on October 15th. She had been sick for a long time, since Rose was born. The birth was hard and she never got better. Before she died, she made me promise something. What did she make you promise? To take care of Rose, to keep us together, to never let anyone separate us. Her voice broke slightly. She steadied it. After the funeral, Aunt Margaret came to Missouri. She took us to Omaha, to her house. I thought she was going to take care of us like she promised Mama. But she didn't. No, sir. She said we were too expensive, that her husband didn't want children, that she had done her duty by coming to the funeral, but she couldn't do more. Emma's hands gripped the edge of the witness stand. On December 1st, she gave me money for a bus ticket, told me to take Rose to the county orphanage in Lincoln, said they would care for us there. Did you want to go to the orphanage? No, sir. I heard what they do to siblings. They separate them, send them to different families, sometimes different states. I promised Mama I would keep Rose safe, keep us together. So what did you do? I got off the bus at the first stop. I started walking. Morrison leaned forward. Walking where? Anywhere. Everywhere. I knocked on doors. I asked for help. I offered to work, to cook, to clean, to do anything. I just needed someone to let us stay together. How many doors did you knock on? 14, sir, before Mr. Blackwood's. And what did those 14 people say? Emma felt tears starting. The memory of those closed doors, those turned backs. Those people who looked at a child with a baby and saw only inconvenience. They said no. They said go to the orphanage. They said they couldn't help. One woman chased me away with a broom, called me a beggar. Her voice was small now, trembling. I walked for 3 days, in the snow. Rose stopped eating because I ran out of milk. She stopped crying because she didn't have the strength. I knew what that meant. I had seen Mama go quiet the same way. Before, she couldn't finish. Morrison's face was somber. Then you came to Mr. Blackwood's farm. Yes, sir. It was the last house I could reach. I was so tired. My feet were bleeding. Rose was barely breathing. I fell down at the gate. I prayed. I said, please God, take me if you want. But not her. Please not her. The courtroom was utterly silent. Several people were crying openly now. Then I knocked on his door, and he opened it. What happened then? He looked at me like he wasn't sure I was real. I told him I didn't want charity. I wanted work. I could clean and cook and earn our keep. He said I was just a child. Emma looked at Henry. But then Rose stopped breathing, just for a moment. And Mr. Blackwood, he didn't hesitate. He brought us inside. He warmed milk for Rose. He fed her. He saved her life. And after that, he said we could stay 1 week. Then we would figure out what to do next. But the week turned into 2 weeks, then 3. And somewhere in there it stopped being about charity or work or any of that. It became about family. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Emma, do you know that Mr. Blackwood is not related to you by blood? Yes, sir. And you know that Mrs. Fletcher is your mother's sister, your aunt? Yes, sir. If I rule in Mrs. Fletcher's favor, you will have to go live with her. Do you understand? Emma's hands gripped the stand so hard her knuckles went white. Yes, sir. I understand. How would you feel about that? The question hung in the air. This was it. This was the moment everything balanced on. Emma looked at Margaret, at the woman who shared her mother's blood, but none of her heart. Then she looked at Henry, at the man who had opened his door when the world closed theirs. I would be afraid, sir. Afraid of what? Afraid of losing Rose. Afraid of being sent away again. Afraid of— Her voice dropped to a whisper. Afraid of not being loved anymore. Do you feel loved by Mr. Blackwood? Yes, sir. I know he loves me, not because he has to, but because he chooses to. Every single day, he chooses us. Morrison nodded slowly. Thank you, Emma. Mr. Drake, do you wish to cross-examine? Drake stood. His face was hard. He had not expected Emma to be this composed, this articulate, this devastating. He needed to break her, to make her seem like a child who could not be trusted. Emma, you told the court your aunt said you were too expensive. Yes, sir. Did anyone else hear her say this? No, sir. It was just me and her. So we only have your word for it. Yes, sir. You're 10 years old. Children sometimes misunderstand adult conversations. Isn't it possible your aunt was trying to explain a difficult situation, and you simply didn't understand? Emma's eyes flashed. I understood perfectly, sir. She said, I cannot afford to feed 2 more mouths. My husband does not want children. You have to go. Or perhaps she said she was trying to find you proper care. She gave me bus fare and told me to leave. That's not finding care. That's getting rid of us. Drake's jaw tightened. You also told the court you have an inheritance, 15 acres worth a significant amount of money. Yes, sir? Did you tell Mr. Blackwood about this inheritance when you first arrived? Emma hesitated. Not right away. Why not? Because I was 10 years old and scared and trying to survive. I didn't think about land. I thought about keeping Rose alive. But you eventually told him, yes, sir, about 2 weeks after we arrived. And after you told him about this valuable land, that's when he decided to file for guardianship. Correct. The implication was clear. Ugly. That Henry wanted the money. Emma's face went red. Not with shame, with anger. No, sir, that's not why he filed. How do you know? Because I know him. Because he gave us everything before he knew about the inheritance. Because he doesn't care about money. He cares about us. That's what he told you. That's what he showed me every single day. Drake changed tactics. Emma, you ran away from your aunt. You disobeyed her instructions. You put yourself and your infant sister in mortal danger. Doesn't that show poor judgment? Emma stood up in the witness chair, small but fierce. I showed perfect judgment, sir. I kept my promise to my mother. I kept Rose alive. I found a home where we could be together. The only poor judgment was made by the 14 people who closed their doors, and by the aunt who sent us out to die. The courtroom erupted. Morrison banged his gavel. Order! Sit down, young lady. Emma sat, but she did not back down, did not apologize. Drake's face was red. You claim Mr. Blackwood loves you, but he's a stranger. How can you possibly know? He's not a stranger anymore. Emma's voice rang out clear and strong. He's my family. Your aunt is your family by blood, by law. Blood doesn't make family, sir. The words fell into the courtroom like stones into still water, rippling out, touching everyone. What does make family, then? Emma looked at Henry, at Daniel, at Ruth holding Rose. Showing up makes family. Choosing to stay makes family. Opening your door when everyone else closes theirs makes family. Love makes family. She turned back to Drake. Aunt Margaret is my mother's sister. We share blood, but Mr. Blackwood is my father. We share love. And there's a difference. Morrison's gavel came down before Drake could respond. That's enough. Mr. Drake, do you have further questions? Drake looked at Emma, at the girl who had just destroyed his case with simple truth. No, Your Honor. Then the witness may step down. Emma climbed down from the stand. Henry met her halfway, pulled her into his arms, held her while the courtroom watched and understood. This was what family looked like. Morrison cleared his throat. Final statements, Mr. Drake. Drake stood, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. Everyone could see. Your Honor, the law is clear. Family has priority. We ask that you follow the law. He sat down, defeated. Mr. Green. Green rose, but he did not speak immediately. Instead, he gestured to Emma still in Henry's arms. Your Honor, you asked Emma what makes family. She gave you the answer. Not blood, not law, not convenience. Love, choice, presence. That is what makes family. And that is what Henry Blackwood has given these children. He paused. The law prefers family. But when family fails, the law must protect the innocent. Emma and Rose are innocent. They deserve protection. They deserve love. They deserve the man who saved their lives. Green sat down. Morrison looked out at the courtroom, at the faces waiting for his decision, at Henry and Emma and Rose, at Margaret sitting alone defeated. This court will take a recess while I consider my verdict. 30 minutes. He stood, left the bench. The courtroom exhaled. 30 minutes to decide the rest of their lives. Henry, Emma, Daniel, and Ruth gathered in the hallway. No one spoke. What was there to say? Everything had been said, done, laid bare before the judge. Now they could only wait. Emma sat with Rose in her lap. The baby was awake now, looking around with bright eyes. She reached up, touched Emma's face. "Ma?" Rose babbled, her first almost word. "Mama?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "No, baby. I'm your sister. Emma. Can you say, Emma?" Rose just smiled, grabbed Emma's nose. Henry knelt down beside them. "Whatever happens, we're going to be okay. How can you promise that?" "Because I'm not giving up. If Morrison rules against us, we appeal. We keep fighting until we win. And if we never win," Henry's face was fierce, "then I'll take you somewhere they can't find us. Canada, Mexico, wherever. I'm not losing you." Daniel put his hand on his father's shoulder. "It won't come to that." "How do you know?" "Because I saw Morrison's face. He's not going to split up this family. He can't. Not after what we showed him in there." Ruth Morrison spoke up. "The boy's right. I've known Hiram Morrison for 30 years. He's a fair man, a good man. He saw what Emma is, what you are, Henry. He won't make the wrong choice." "But what if he—" "Shh." Ruth took Henry's hand. "Have faith." They waited. The longest 30 minutes of their lives. People came and went. Lawyers conferred. The crowd in the courtroom grew. Finally, a bailiff appeared. "Judge Morrison is ready." They filed back in, took their seats. The courtroom was packed now, standing room only. Word had spread. This was the verdict everyone wanted to hear. Morrison entered, sat down, looked out at the assembly. His face was unreadable. "I have considered all the evidence, all the testimony, all the arguments of law and precedent and blood." He paused. "This is not an easy decision. Family law exists to protect children by keeping them with relatives when possible. Mrs. Fletcher is Emma and Rose Carter's aunt, their closest living relative." Emma felt her heart stop. Henry's hand found hers, gripped tight. "However," Morrison continued, "the law also recognizes that blood relation alone does not determine best interest. The court must consider the totality of circumstances." He looked at Margaret. "Mrs. Fletcher, you had these children in your care. You chose to send them away, not to a relative, not to a safe placement, but to an orphanage 60 miles away, with nothing but bus fare and hope. You did not verify they arrived safely. You did not check on their welfare. You filed no missing persons report for 6 weeks. His voice hardened. "Furthermore, evidence suggests your current petition is motivated not by love for these children, but by desire to control their inheritance for your own financial benefit. This court finds such motivation unconscionable." Margaret's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we object to this characterization." "Sit down, Mr. Drake. I'm not finished." Morrison turned to Henry. "Mr. Blackwood, you are not related to these children by blood or marriage. You are a stranger who took them in during a blizzard. By law, you had no obligation to help them." Henry's grip on Emma's hand tightened. "But you did help them. You fed them, sheltered them, cared for them. You gave them not just survival, but love. You gave them not just a house, but a home. And in the process, you became what Mrs. Fletcher never was." Morrison's voice rang out across the silent courtroom. "You became their father." Emma gasped. Henry's eyes filled with tears. "Therefore, it is the judgment of this court that the petition of Margaret Fletcher for guardianship is hereby denied." The courtroom erupted, but Morrison's gavel came down hard. "I'm not finished. Furthermore, the petition of Henry Blackwood for guardianship is hereby granted. Full legal custody of Emma Carter and Rose Carter is awarded to Henry Blackwood, effective immediately." The gavel fell again. "This court is adjourned." For a moment no one moved, no one breathed. The words hung in the air like a miracle no one quite believed. Then Emma screamed, "We won, Pa! We won!" She launched herself into Henry's arms. He caught her, held her, lifted her off the ground and spun her around while tears streamed down both their faces. "We won, sweetheart. You're mine. You're really mine." Daniel was there, hugging both of them, and Ruth with Rose the baby laughing at all the commotion, and Reverend Webb and half of Clearwater pressing in to congratulate them. Margaret Fletcher stood, looked at Emma one last time. Something passed across her face. Regret, maybe, or just the recognition of absolute defeat. She left without a word. Samuel Green appeared at Henry's side. "Congratulations, you have a family." "I always had a family. Now I have the paperwork to prove it." They laughed. They cried. They held each other in the Lancaster County Courthouse while snow fell outside and the winter world turned white and clean and new. Emma looked up at Henry. "Can I call you Pa for real now? Not just in private. Sweetheart, you can call me anything you want. You're my daughter, legally, forever. I love you, Pa. I love you too, Emma. You and Rose both. More than anything in this world." Rose, still in Ruth's arms, reached out toward Henry. "Pa, Papa," her first clear word. Not Mama. Not sister. "Pa." Henry took her, held both his daughters, one in each arm, and for the first time in 3 years, Henry Blackwood felt complete. The gate had opened. 2 lost girls had walked through, and on the other side they had all found what they were searching for: home. The journey back to Clearwater felt different than the journey to Lincoln. The wagon rolled over the same frozen roads. The same winter wind cut across the Nebraska prairie. The same gray sky stretched overhead. But everything had changed. Henry held the reins with one hand. The other arm was wrapped around Emma, who sat pressed against his side with Rose sleeping in her lap. Daniel rode his horse alongside the wagon, close enough to touch, close enough to be part of this moment. They were a family now, not by accident, not by circumstance, by law, by choice, by the kind of love that survived blizzards and courtrooms and 3 years of grief. "Pa," Emma's voice was small, uncertain in a way it had not been since the verdict. "Yeah, sweetheart. Is it real? Are we really? Can they really not take us away now?" Henry pulled her closer. "It's real. The judge signed the papers. You and Rose are mine, legally, forever. Nobody can change that. Not even if Aunt Margaret tries again. Not even then. She has no claim anymore. The court decided. You're Emma Blackwood now. You and Rose both." Emma tested the name silently, moving her lips around the syllables. Emma Blackwood. After 10 years of being Emma Carter, the daughter of a seamstress who died too young, she was someone new, someone who belonged. It sounds strange. Good strange or bad strange. Good strange, like putting on new clothes that fit just right. Henry smiled, the first real smile that touched his eyes in longer than he could remember. "Your mama would be happy for you. Harriet, I mean. She'd be glad you found a home." "Do you think she knows wherever she is?" "I think if there's any justice in heaven she knows, and I think she's grateful that someone was there when you needed help." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, "What about your Sarah? Do you think she knows?" Henry's throat tightened. He looked up at the sky, at the gray clouds that held snow they had not yet decided to release. "Yeah, I think she knows. I think she sent you to me." "You really believe that?" "I have to believe something, Emma. Otherwise, it's all just chance, just random luck that you knocked on my door instead of someone else's. But it doesn't feel random. It feels like," he struggled for words, "like she kept her promise." "What promise?" "On her deathbed, Sarah made me promise I'd keep living, that I wouldn't die with her. I broke that promise for 3 years, just went through the motions, existing but not living. Then you showed up. And suddenly I had a reason to keep breathing, a reason to care, a reason to remember what it felt like to be needed." He looked down at Emma. "So yeah, I think Sarah sent you. I think she looked down from wherever she is and said, 'That stubborn fool needs help. He needs a reason to live.' And she sent me 2 girls who needed saving so I could save myself." Emma leaned her head against his shoulder. "Then I'm glad she did. Because I needed you too, Pa. More than you know." They rode in silence after that, comfortable silence. The silence of people who understood each other without words. Daniel spoke up from his horse. "There's something I need to tell you both. About the inheritance." Emma tensed. "What about it?" "I had my lawyer friend in Chicago do some investigating. The railroad is definitely coming through Boone County. They're offering $800 per acre for land in that corridor." Henry did quick math. 15 acres, that's $12,000. $12,000, Daniel repeated. "Emma, that money is yours and Rose's. Your grandmother left it to your mother. Your mother left it to you. It's not Aunt Margaret's. It's not anyone else's. It's yours." Emma looked down at Rose, sleeping peacefully in her lap. "That's more money than I've ever imagined. It's enough to send you to college when you're older, to give Rose a good education, to make sure you never have to worry about survival again." "What do I do with it?" Henry and Daniel exchanged glances. "We'll put it in a trust," Henry said. "In your name and Rose's name. Samuel Green can set it up. The money will be there when you need it. For school, for your future, for whatever you want." Emma was quiet, processing this. Then, I want to do something with part of it. What? I want to help other people. People like me and Rose. People who have nowhere to go. Henry looked at his daughter, at the 10-year-old who had walked 40 miles through snow and somehow emerged with her heart still intact, still capable of thinking about others. What did you have in mind? A fund or a house, somewhere people can go when they need help, when all the other doors close. I want there to be a place that stays open. Daniel smiled. Like your gate, Father. Yeah, Henry said softly, like my gate. They arrived in Clearwater as the sun was setting, but the town was not dark. Lanterns blazed in windows. People lined the street. Someone had hung a banner across the front of the general store. Welcome home, Emma and Rose Blackwood. The name, their new name, proclaimed for all to see. The wagon had barely stopped before Ruth Morrison was there, pulling Emma into a fierce hug. You did it, child. You fought, and you won. We all won, Emma said. You testified. Reverend Webb testified. Everyone helped. That's what family does. The word hit Emma like a physical thing. Family. Not just Henry and Daniel and Rose, but Ruth and Reverend Webb and the people of Clearwater who had shown up when it mattered. They gathered at the church for an impromptu celebration. Someone had brought food. Someone else had made coffee. Children ran through the aisles while adults talked and laughed and shared in the joy of a happy ending that had seemed impossible just weeks ago. Reverend Webb stood at the pulpit, raised his hands for quiet. Friends, we gather tonight to celebrate a victory. Not a legal victory, though that is important, but a victory of the human spirit, of love over law, of choice over blood, of a family that chose each other when the world said they could not. He looked at Henry and Emma. 3 weeks ago, a stranger knocked on Henry Blackwood's door. He could have turned her away. 14 others had, but Henry did something remarkable. He opened his door. He let in the cold and the snow and 2 children who needed help, and in doing so, he saved more than their lives. He saved his own. People nodded. Some were crying quietly. The Bible tells us that faith without works is dead. Henry showed us what living faith looks like, what love in action looks like. He took strangers and made them family, not because he had to, not because the law required it, but because it was the right thing to do. Webb smiled. So tonight we celebrate. We celebrate Emma and Rose Blackwood. We celebrate Henry and Daniel. We celebrate the family that was broken and is now whole. And we remember that sometimes the greatest miracles happen when someone simply opens a door. The church erupted in applause. Henry stood uncomfortable with the attention, but Emma grabbed his hand, held tight. They're right, Pa. You are a miracle. I'm just a man who opened a door. No, you're the man who opened the door, the one that mattered, the one that saved us. Later, as the celebration wound down, Samuel Green appeared with an envelope. Official documents, he said. Signed by Judge Morrison this afternoon. He handed the envelope to Henry. Inside were 3 documents, each one stamped with the seal of Lancaster County, Nebraska. Certificate of adoption. Emma Carter, now Emma Catherine Blackwood, adopted daughter of Henry James Blackwood. Dated January 15, 1892. Certificate of adoption. Rose Carter, now Rose Harriet Blackwood, adopted daughter of Henry James Blackwood. Dated January 15, 1892. Legal guardianship order. Full custody granted to Henry James Blackwood. All rights and responsibilities transferred. Permanent and irrevocable. Henry stared at the papers, at the official stamps and signatures that made it real, made it legal, made it permanent. Catherine, Emma said softly. My middle name is Catherine now. Sarah wanted to name our daughter Catherine, Henry said, his voice rough with emotion. Seems right that you should have it. And Rose is Harriet, after my mama, after both your mothers, the one who gave you life and the one who gave you love. Emma threw her arms around Henry's neck. Rose, sensing the emotion, even if she could not understand it, reached out from Ruth's arms, wanting to be part of the embrace. Henry took both his daughters, held them close, let the tears fall, because there was no shame in crying when your heart was too full to hold everything inside. My girls, he whispered, my beautiful girls. Daniel stood beside them, put his hand on his father's shoulder. Mother would be so proud of you. She'd be proud of all of us. They stood there in the church while people quietly left, giving them space, giving them this moment. Ruth Morrison was the last to go, pressing a kiss to each of their foreheads before slipping out into the night. Finally, it was just the 4 of them, Henry, Daniel, Emma, and Rose, a family forged in fire and snow, and the desperate hope that love could be enough. Let's go home, Henry said. They drove through the darkness. The stars had come out, brilliant and cold and infinite, the kind of stars you could only see on the prairie, away from cities and smoke and the things that blocked the light. Emma looked up at them. Mama used to tell me the stars were people who had died, watching over us from heaven. What do you think? I think maybe she was right. I think maybe there are 2 stars up there now, your Sarah and my Harriet, watching us, making sure we're okay. Henry followed her gaze. I think you might be right. The farm appeared in the distance, the house dark but welcoming, the barn solid against the sky, the gate standing open, always open. Henry pulled the wagon to a stop, but before they climbed down, he had something to say. Emma Rose, I want you to know something. I didn't become your father today. The judge didn't make me your father. The papers didn't make me your father. Emma looked at him confused. What do you mean? I became your father the night I opened that door, the night I chose to let you in, the night I decided that your life mattered more than my comfort. Everything after that, the lawyers and the court and the papers, that was just making official what was already true. His voice roughened. You've been my daughter since the moment I saw you standing in that snow, and you always will be, no matter what. Emma could not speak past the lump in her throat, so she just nodded, just held on. They went inside. The house was cold. Henry built up the fire while Daniel brought in wood. Emma put Rose to bed in the room that had once been for a daughter Sarah never got to have, a room that finally had the child it was meant for. When Rose was asleep, Emma returned to the main room. Henry and Daniel were sitting by the fire, talking quietly, planning for spring planting, for the future, for all the tomorrows they had ahead of them. Emma sat down between them, leaned against Henry's side. Pa, yeah, thank you for everything, for opening the door, for keeping us, for fighting for us, for loving us. Henry put his arm around her. Thank you for knocking, for being brave enough to keep trying, for not giving up. I couldn't give up. I had Rose to protect. And now I have both of you to protect, and I will, for the rest of my life. They sat there as the fire burned low. 3 people who had been alone and were now together. 3 people who had lost everything and found something better. Emma fell asleep against Henry's shoulder. He carried her to bed, tucked her in beside Rose, looked at his daughters sleeping peacefully, safe, loved, home. Daniel appeared in the doorway. You did good, Father. We did good, all of us. What happens now? Henry looked at the 2 girls sleeping in the bed. Now we live. We raise these girls, we teach them and love them and watch them grow. We give them the childhood they deserve, the future they earned. And the gate, Henry smiled, the gate stays open, always, because you never know who might need to walk through. 10 years passed. They were good years, hard years sometimes. Farming always was, but good years nonetheless. Emma grew from a child into a young woman, smart and strong, and still stubborn as the day she first knocked on Henry's door. She finished school at the top of her class, became a teacher at the Clearwater schoolhouse. The children loved her because she understood what it meant to struggle, what it meant to fight for every small victory. Rose grew too, into a bright, curious girl who had no memory of the desperate journey that brought her to Nebraska. To her, Henry was simply Pa. Had always been Pa, would always be Pa. She knew the story, of course. Emma told her on her 10th birthday, but knowing the story and remembering it were different things. Daniel married a woman named Alice, who taught at the school before Emma took over. They had children, 2 boys and a girl. The farmhouse that had been so empty for so long, filled with the sound of grandchildren and laughter and life. Henry aged. His hair went from gray to white. His back bent slightly from years of hard work. But his eyes stayed sharp. His love stayed fierce. And every morning he walked out to check that the gate was still open. Always open. The Harriet Carter Memorial Fund started with $1,000 from Emma's inheritance. By 1902, it had helped 47 families, provided food, shelter, and hope to people who had nowhere else to turn. Emma ran it with the same fierce determination she had shown walking 40 miles through snow. On a summer evening in 1902, Henry stood at the gate. He was 51 years old now, still strong but feeling his years. Emma was 20. Rose was 11, both beautiful, both thriving. A woman approached the gate, young, maybe 25. She had 2 children with her, a boy of 5 and a girl of 3. They looked hungry, tired, desperate. Henry recognized that look, had seen it 10 years ago on Emma's face. Can I help you, ma'am? The woman's voice trembled. I heard someone in town said you help people who have nowhere else to go. Henry looked at the children, saw the fear in their eyes, the hope fighting against resignation. Come in, he said. We've got room at the table. We've got food. We've got a place you can stay until you get on your feet. I can work. I can clean or cook or... We'll figure that out. Right now you just need to eat and rest. Come on." He led them toward the house. Emma appeared on the porch. She took one look at the woman and children and understood immediately. "I'll make up the spare room," she said. Henry introduced them. The woman's name was Clara. Her husband had died. She had been turned away from her family, had been walking for 2 days. The story was different, but also the same. A person in need. A door that opened when others closed. That night, after Clara and her children were fed and settled, Emma and Henry stood at the gate again. "It never ends, does it?" Emma said. "People needing help, people being turned away." "No, it never ends. That's why we keep the gate open." "Why us, Pa? Why do we have to be the ones?" Henry put his arm around his daughter. "Because we know what it's like. You know what it's like to knock on 14 doors, to be told no, to be turned away when you're desperate. We can't let that happen to anyone else, not if we can help it." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. "Mama would be proud, both of them, Harriet and Sarah. They'd be proud of you. Look at what you've built, the fund, the lives you've helped, the difference you've made. We've made, all of us." They stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and red and purple. Rose came out to join them, then Daniel with his family. 3 generations standing at the gate that had changed all their lives. "Tell us the story again, Grandpa," Daniel's oldest son said, "about how Aunt Emma came here." Henry smiled. He told the story often, never tired of it. "It was December 12, 1891, the coldest night I could remember. I was sitting by the fire when I heard a knock on the door." He told them about Emma standing in the snow, about Rose nearly dead from cold and hunger, about the decision to open the door, about the weeks that followed, about the trial and the verdict, and the family that was built from nothing but need and love. The children listened with wide eyes. They had heard it before, would hear it again, but the story never got old, because it was not just a story. It was their history, their legacy, the foundation of who they were. When the story ended as it always did with the judge's verdict and the ride home, Emma added the ending Henry always forgot. "And the gate stayed open, because you never know who might need to walk through." Years passed. Henry grew older, his steps slower, his hair pure white. But his heart stayed young, stayed open. In 1912, at the age of 61, Henry Blackwood sat on his porch on a warm summer evening. Emma sat beside him. Rose was visiting from Lincoln, where she worked as a nurse. Daniel's grandchildren played in the yard. 4 generations. All because one man opened a door. "Pa," Emma said. She was 30 now. Still called him Pa. Would always call him Pa. "Yeah, sweetheart. Do you ever regret it? Taking us in all the work and worry and fighting?" Henry looked at her, at the woman she had become. Teacher, philanthropist, mother figure to dozens of children through her work with the fund. Not for a single second. Not even when things were hard. Especially not then. "Emma, you and Rose gave me back my life. Before you came, I was already dead, just going through the motions. But you reminded me what it meant to live, what it meant to love, what it meant to have a reason to wake up in the morning." He took her hand. "I should be asking you, do you regret knocking on my door? You could have gone to the orphanage, could have had a different life." A life without you, without Rose, without this family. Never, even though it was hard, even though you had to fight. Especially because of that. The things worth having are always worth fighting for. You taught me that. They sat in silence, watching the sun set, watching the gate at the end of the drive. Still open. Always open. "Emma." "Yeah, Pa. When I'm gone." "Don't talk like that. When I'm gone," Henry continued firmly, "I want you to promise me something. Anything. Keep the gate open. No matter what. No matter who comes. No matter how hard it gets. Keep it open." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I promise." "Because that's our legacy. Not the land. Not the money. Not even the family name. Our legacy is the door that opened when all the others closed. The gate that stayed open when everyone else shut theirs." He squeezed her hand. "Promise me you'll pass that on, to Rose, to the children, to everyone who comes after. The gate stays open." "I promise, Pa. The gate stays open." Henry Blackwood died peacefully in his sleep 3 months later, surrounded by family, loved, content, at peace. At his funeral, they buried him next to Sarah. The headstone read simple words: Henry James Blackwood, 1851 to 1912, beloved husband, devoted father. He opened the door. Below it, Emma added one more line: "The gate stays open." And it did. Emma Blackwood lived to be 85. Rose lived to 90. They never closed the gate. never turned anyone away. The Harriet Carter Memorial Fund grew into a network of shelters across Nebraska, helping thousands. The Blackwood Farm became a symbol, a reminder that one person opening one door could change everything. Daniel's descendants kept the farm for 3 more generations, and every single one of them on their first day living there was told the story about a 10-year-old girl who walked 40 miles through snow, about a man who had lost everything and found it again, about a baby who survived because someone cared, about a gate that opened when the world closed, and about the simple truth that changed all their lives. Family is not blood. Family is choice. Family is love. Family is the door you open when everyone else closes theirs. The gate still stands, over 100 years later. No longer the original gate, of course. That rusted away decades ago. But there is always a gate at the Blackwood Farm, and it is always open, because you never know who might need to walk through. You never know who might be standing in the snow, desperate and afraid, knocking on their last door. You never know when opening that door might save a life, or change yours forever. The gate stays open, always.